in the dead of winter, when snow hides everything beneath it. A Navy SEAL thought he was walking away from danger. His dog stopped. Not barking, not pulling, just standing still, like the ground itself was warning them. Beneath the snow was not an animal, not debris, but a man the cold was meant to erase. One step forward could have meant death. One step back meant choosing to listen. This is not a story about luck or heroics or coincidence. It's about instinct, faith, and the moment you decide whether to trust what can't speak. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe to K9 Navy SEAL Legends. Snow fell differently in Grand Marais. It didn't rush, it didn't scream. It arrived with patience, layer by layer, until even sound felt buried. Logan Reyes stood on the narrow porch of the cabin, breath fogging in front of him, watching Lake Superior disappear into white. At 30, he carried himself like someone older. Not because of age, but because time had pressed on him unevenly. Harder in some places, leaving dents that never quite smoothed out. He was a Navy SEAL on medical hold, not discharged, not active, suspended in the quiet purgatory between usefulness and rest. The cabin had belonged to his uncle Mateo, a man who smelled of pine resin and black coffee, who believed solitude was not loneliness, but discipline. Mateo had died 2 winters ago, heart attack, alone, shovel still leaning against the wall. Logan hadn't been there. He hadn't been anywhere that mattered. The cabin still smelled faintly of cedar and old smoke. It was small, functional, honest. Logan liked that. Nothing in it pretended to be more than it was. Behind him, claws clicked softly against wood. Coda stepped out onto the porch and sat at Logan's side. The German shepherd was 7 years old now, still powerful, but no longer sharp in the reckless way of younger dogs. His black and tan coat was thick and clean, built for cold. His ears stood tall, alert even at rest. His eyes, dark, intelligent, always working, tracked the horizon without urgency. Coda did not fidget. He did not whine. He observed. That was why Logan trusted him, and also why Logan had started doubting himself. The walk was meant to be short, just enough to remind his body it still belonged to him. Logan clipped the lead to Coda's collar and stepped off the porch into knee-deep snow. His boots, tan, military grade, cut a clean path toward the service road that curved through the trees behind the cabin. Pines rose on either side, tall and dark, their branches heavy with white. The cold bit, through layers, but didn't surprise him. Cold was honest. It didn't lie about what it was doing to you. Logan's mind, on the other hand, was less predictable. It drifted when he let it. To a cracked transmission, to a radio that went dead when it mattered most, to a teammate screaming his name through static that never cleared. They told him it wasn't his fault. They always did. But a responsibility didn't disappear just because paperwork said so. Coda moved beside him with quiet precision, paws barely sinking into the powder. Every few steps, the dog's head tilted slightly, scenting the air, mapping a world Logan could not see. Logan noticed, but didn't comment. He had learned the hard way that speaking sometimes made things worse. They were maybe half a mile from the cabin when it happened. Coda stopped. Not slowed, not hesitated. Stopped. His body stiffened, weight shifting back just enough to block Logan's forward step. Ears locked forward, tail low, still. Logan felt it a second later, the subtle tightening in his chest that came before adrenaline, not after. "What is it?" Logan murmured, more habit than concern. Coda didn't look at him. He was staring at nothing. The service road ahead looked the same as it always did. A narrow ribbon of snow between trees, unmarked except for wind-softened tracks from an old plow. No movement, no sound, no visible threat. Logan exhaled slowly. Deer, he said to himself, or fox. He had seen animals freeze like that before. Coda was trained, yes, but he was still a dog, and dogs made mistakes. Logan lifted his hand and gave a subtle forward signal. Let's go. Coda didn't move. The silence stretched. Logan felt irritation flicker, quick, unwelcome. He hated that part of himself, the part that needed motion to drown out memory. Coda, he said again, firmer. The dog turned his head just enough to glance at Logan. There was no panic in his eyes. No fear, only certainty. Logan hesitated. Then he made his first mistake. Forward, he repeated. Coda obeyed, but not willingly. He stepped aside, tension rippling through his frame like a pulled wire. His head stayed low as they moved on, nose working overtime. Logan felt the leash tighten slightly, not from pulling, but restraint. They hadn't gone 10 steps when Coda abruptly lunged sideways. The force was sudden enough to jerk Logan off balance. He stumbled, boot sliding, and cursed under his breath. Coda! The dog didn't stop. He dragged Logan toward the edge of the road, down a shallow talus slope where snow lay deeper and undisturbed. Coda began to dig, fast, aggressive, snow spraying in sharp arcs. This wasn't play. This was work. Logan dropped to one knee, heart pounding now, and scanned the tree line. Still nothing. But the feeling, tight, electric, had settled in his bones. Coda, what do you have? The dog dug harder, breath coming in short bursts. His claws struck something solid with a dull thud. Coda froze. Then he began scraping carefully. Logan's stomach dropped. He plunged his gloved hands into the snow, shoveling blindly. The cold burned through the fabric, sharp and immediate. He didn't stop. Black material emerged, rubberized. Not bark, not rock. A backpack, waterproof, military grade. Logan ripped it free and flipped it open. Inside, a fractured military ID, snapped clean in half. A compact encrypted drive, sealed and intact. And the unmistakable smell of fuel. Cold, metallic, wrong. Logan stared at it, pulse roaring in his ears. This wasn't lost gear. This was hidden. Coda let out a low growl. Not loud, not threatening. A warning meant for one listener only. Logan lifted his head slowly. The forest had changed, not visibly, not audibly, but the space between the trees felt occupied now, like breath being held where none should exist. Snow drifted down in lazy spirals, soft enough to feel unreal. Coda's eyes were locked on the darkness ahead, watching, as if something had just watched back. Logan forced himself to breathe. He secured the pack and stood, scanning left to right. Training took over. Not panic, not fear, awareness. There were no tracks, no broken branches, nothing human. That didn't mean nothing was there. Logan clipped the pack to his own gear and tightened the leash. He crouched beside Coda and rested his forehead briefly against the dog's. I should have listened, he whispered. Coda didn't respond. He didn't need to. They turned back toward the cabin together, moving slower now, every sense extended. Logan felt the weight of the pack like a countdown he didn't understand yet. Behind them, snow fell quietly, patient as ever. And somewhere beyond the tree line, something unseen had just learned that what was buried had been found. The wind rose without warning. One moment the forest breathed quietly. The next it exhaled hard enough to bend the pines. Snow swept sideways through the trees, stinging Logan's face like fine gravel. Visibility dropped to a handful of yards, the world narrowing to trunks, shadow, and motion. Coda moved first. He left the service road at an angle, not rushing, not hesitating, just certain. His body stayed low as he threaded between the trees, paws finding ground Logan couldn't see. The leash tightened and slackened in small corrections, a silent conversation between handler and dog that had once been effortless and now felt newly fragile. Logan followed. He checked his phone again. No signal. Not even a flicker. "Of course," he muttered. The forest thickened as they went. Branches drooped under the weight of snow, forming narrow tunnels that swallowed sound. Logan's boots punched through drifts up to mid-calf, the cold seeping in fast. He adjusted his grip on the pack. He'd recovered earlier. The weight at his side a reminder that this wasn't just a bad walk turning worse. Coda slowed near a shallow depression in the ground. The scent hit Logan a second later. Stale, human, wrong. Not fresh enough to mean someone had passed through recently, but not old enough to belong to last season. Coda stopped again. This time he didn't freeze. He angled left and began circling, nose low, tail rigid. Logan watched the pattern form, tight, deliberate, tracking. They crested a small rise, and the ground dropped away sharply. Below them, half buried under a collapsed roof and a crust of snow, was a hunting shack. It had been built cheap and fast. Plywood walls, tin roof, no insulation. The roof had given in sometime during the last heavy storm, snow piling in until the structure surrendered. What remained was a jagged opening like a broken rib cage. Coda approached first and halted at the edge. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He sat. That was worse. Logan slid down the slope carefully, testing each step before committing his weight. The shack loomed larger as he approached, its interior dark and silent. He could see a shape inside now, human-sized, slumped against the far wall. "Coda, stay," Logan said quietly. The dog obeyed, muscles coiled. Logan ducked through the opening. The smell inside was sharp and chemical, layered over sweat and fear. He knelt beside the figure and reached out with 2 fingers, pressing lightly against a neck. A pulse, weak, irregular. The man was alive. He looked to be in his mid-30s, maybe early 40s, hard to tell under the grime and frost. His build was average, neither soft nor particularly strong. The kind of body shaped by desk work more than labor. Dark hair lay plastered to his forehead in damp strands, skin pale against the dirt ground. His beard was patchy and untrimmed, more neglect than style. His wrists were bound with zip ties, cinched tight enough to leave angry red grooves in his skin. His mouth wasn't taped, but stuffed with a wad of cloth that smelled faintly sweet and bitter at the same time. Logan recognized it immediately. Sedative, low grade, enough to slow reflexes, not enough to kill. Whoever did this wanted him conscious, just not capable. Logan removed the cloth carefully. The man coughed once, shallow and painful, eyes fluttering open. "Easy," Logan said. "You're safe. For now." The man tried to speak. His lips trembled, cracked, and blue. "Didn't work," he rasped. Logan frowned. "What didn't?" The man swallowed with effort. "The storm. They thought I'd freeze." So that was it. Not an execution, an erasure. Logan worked fast. He cut the zip ties, flexed the man's hands to restore circulation, then wrapped him in his thermal blanket. The shack offered little protection from the wind, but it was better than open forest. "What's your name?" Logan asked. The man hesitated, eyes darting to the opening. "Evan," he said finally. "Evan Brooks." His voice held no authority, no bravado, just exhaustion, the kind that settles into bone. "What do you do, Evan?" A humorless smile tugged at the corner of Evan's mouth. "IT, infrastructure systems, contract work." That explained the pack and the drive. Logan's jaw tightened. "Who did this to you?" Evan closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something inside had shifted. "I don't know names," he said, "but I know how they move." The wind howled outside, shaking the shack. Snow sifted through cracks in the walls. Logan glanced toward the opening. "Coda," he called softly. The German shepherd stepped inside and took position by the doorway, body angled outward, ears forward. He didn't look at Evan. He watched the forest. "He's intense," Evan murmured. "He's doing his job," Logan replied. Evan laughed weakly, then winced. "Wish someone had done theirs sooner." They stayed in the shack as long as they could. Logan rationed warmth, rotating his own gloves off and on Evan's hands, forcing him to sip melted snow mixed with electrolyte tabs from his kit. Night crept in early, the sky dimming to slate long before it should have. Logan weighed his options. Carry Evan now, blind through the storm. Or wait. Neither was good. Coda shifted suddenly. His ears snapped forward, body stiffening. Logan felt it then. A vibration, low and distant. Engine noise. He killed his headlamp instantly and pressed himself against the wall. Coda stood, silent, blocking the opening. Through the trees, a beam of light swept briefly across the snow, pale and searching. It paused, then moved on. Logan counted his breaths. 1, 2, 3. The light vanished. The engine sound faded. No bark, no growl. Just Coda, standing like a wall. After the light was gone, Coda did something Logan had never seen him do before. He turned his head, not toward the forest, but back toward Logan, and held his gaze, not alert, not warning, as if asking a question. Logan felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't random. This wasn't opportunistic violence. Someone knew the storm would do the rest. When it was safe, Logan leaned back against the wall and exhaled slowly. Evan stirred. "They use winter," he whispered. "It's clean. No blood. No noise." "Who?" Logan asked. Evan's eyes flicked toward the darkness outside. "People who move things when roads close. Snowplows, supply trucks, cold storage." Logan didn't interrupt. "They have access, legit access," Evan continued. "They blend in. You don't question a plow at 3 in the morning. You don't question a warehouse that smells like fuel and ice." Logan thought of the pack, the drive, the broken ID. "And when someone sees something they shouldn't?" he asked. Evan's mouth tightened. "They don't kill you. They let the weather decide." The wind battered the shack again, as if in agreement. Logan looked at Coda, then back at Evan. "We're getting out of here," he said. "Not tonight, but soon." Evan nodded faintly. "They'll be looking." Logan's expression hardened. "Let them." Outside, the storm raged on, patient, relentless. And somewhere beyond the trees, winter waited to see if it would be obeyed. The county hospital looked smaller at night. Not abandoned, just reduced. A single-story building pressed low against the snow, its windows glowing softly like it was trying not to draw attention to itself. Wind scraped along the siding, and somewhere a loose vent rattled in a tired rhythm. Logan eased the truck into the emergency drop-off and killed the engine. The sudden silence felt heavy, unnatural after hours of wind and motion. Coda jumped down first, landing cleanly despite the ice. He shook once, snow spraying from his black and tan coat, then immediately turned back to the rear door, waiting. Logan helped Evan out carefully. Evan Brooks could barely stand on his own. His legs trembled, joints stiff from cold exposure and sedatives wearing off unevenly. Under the harsh white lights, he looked worse. Skin grayish, lips cracked, eyes sunken deep into his face. He was a man who had been left to die and hadn't quite decided yet whether to forgive the world for failing. Inside, the emergency department smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee. A woman in navy scrubs approached with purposeful steps. Dr. Elaine Porter was in her early 40s, medium height, lean build, dark hair pulled back into a no-nonsense bun. Her face carried the calm severity of someone who had seen too much to waste energy on dramatics. Fine lines framed her eyes, not from age but from long nights under fluorescent lights. "What happened?" she asked, already reaching for Evan's wrist. "Hypothermia," Logan replied. "Prolonged exposure. Mild chemical sedation." Her eyes flicked to him, sharp, assessing. "You medical?" "No." "Military?" It wasn't a question. She nodded once. "We'll take him." Two nurses appeared, efficient, quiet. Evan was guided onto a gurney, his weight sagging like he no longer trusted his body to hold him up. Logan started to follow. Dr. Porter raised a hand. "Sir." "He's not alone," Logan said evenly. Coda stepped forward, close at his knee. Dr. Porter hesitated, then sighed. "Fine, but keep him calm." Coda didn't need the instruction. The hallway beyond the trauma bay was narrow and underlit, beige walls scuffed from decades of stretchers passing too close. The hospital was running on skeleton staff. Winter always thinned things out. That was when Logan noticed the stairs. Not curious, measuring. A man in a faded jacket lingered too long near the nurse's station. Another pretended to check a vending machine that had clearly been empty for months. Logan felt the familiar tightening in his shoulders, the old reflex to catalog exits, angles, threats. He hated it. He wanted to be invisible. But invisibility had never been his skill. Coda walked at his side, head level, ears relaxed, but his eyes tracked everything. "Is he law enforcement?" one nurse whispered to another. Dr. Porter heard it and shut it down with a look. "He's nobody's problem," she said flatly. "Get back to work." Deputy Sheriff Casey Weller arrived 15 minutes later. She stamped snow from her boots at the entrance, tall and rangy, built like someone who spent more time outdoors than behind a desk. Her blonde hair was braided tightly down her back, streaked with gray she didn't bother hiding. Her face was weathered, cheeks red from cold, eyes pale blue and direct. She carried herself without hurry. People moved when she spoke, not because she demanded it, but because she didn't need to. "You the one who brought him in?" she asked Logan. "Yes." Her gaze swept over him, boots, posture, the way he stood slightly between the corridor and the trauma bay. She clocked Coda next. "K9?" she asked. "Former handler," Logan said. "Former," she echoed. Not skeptical, curious. She turned toward Dr. Porter. "Status?" "Stable for now," the doctor replied. "We're warming him slow. Whatever happened wasn't an accident." Casey's jaw tightened. Just a fraction. "Can I speak with him?" she asked. "When he's conscious?" Casey nodded, then turned back to Logan. "I'll need a statement." "Of course." "Not here," she added, glancing at the hallway. "Too many ears." They stepped into a small consultation room near the back. Bare table, 2 chairs, a box of gloves on the wall. Casey closed the door and leaned back against it, arms folded. "Grand Marais doesn't see much like this," she said. "People don't usually get tied up and left for storms to finish." Logan met her gaze. Someone wanted it to look natural. Casey studied him a moment longer. "You don't talk like a tourist." "No." She nodded once, satisfied enough. "I'm going to say this plainly. If you're involved in something bigger than my county, I need to know." Logan considered his answer carefully. "I found him," he said, "and someone is still looking." That was the truth. Not all of it, but enough. Before Casey could respond, Coda stiffened. His head snapped up, ears forward. He stepped into the doorway, body rigid. Logan felt it instantly, the air shifting, pressure behind the eyes. Footsteps approached from the far end of the hall. A man appeared, pushing a metal cart stacked with boxes. He was young, mid-20s at most, thin build, sloped shoulders, wearing a reflective vest over a gray hoodie. A beanie was pulled low over dark hair. His face was narrow, beard patchy, eyes that never quite settled on anyone for long. "Evening," he said lightly. "Late delivery." Coda did not move. He did not bark. He stood directly in the man's path. The man slowed, smile tightening. "Hey, dog can't be in the hallway." Logan stepped forward. "What's the delivery?" "Medical supplies." Casey leaned out of the room. "We didn't order any." The man's smile flickered. Just for a second. Dr. Porter appeared behind them, eyes narrowing. "Those boxes aren't labeled." Coda took one step closer to the cart. His nose flared. A low, barely audible whine escaped his throat. Not fear. Recognition. Logan felt it then, cold certainty. "Open it," Casey said. The man hesitated. That was enough. Casey moved fast, flipping the top box open. Inside were syringes, unmarked vials, and beneath them, a compact device wired with unfamiliar components. Camera jammer. Silence fell heavy around them. The man bolted. He didn't make it 3 steps. Casey had him pinned against the wall in seconds, her forearm pressing into his collarbone with practiced force. "You picked the wrong night," she said quietly. As deputies took the man away, Coda remained where he was, staring at the open box. Then slowly, deliberately, he turned his head toward the trauma bay. Not the hallway, not the exit. Logan followed his gaze and felt his stomach drop. This hadn't been about supplies. It had been about timing. Evan was moved immediately. New room, new wing, restricted access. Dr. Porter supervised personally, her movements quick and precise. "Whoever this is," she said under her breath, "they're bold." Casey returned a few minutes later, face tight. "That wasn't a delivery driver," she said. "Fake ID, no company record." Logan's phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. One message. "You came back to the wrong place." Logan stared at the screen, jaw set. Casey saw his expression. "You getting threats?" "Yes." "Good," she said grimly. "Means you're relevant." An officer hurried down the hall, breathless. "Sheriff, deputy, there's something you should see." Casey followed him to the security office. A grainy monitor showed camera feeds from around town, or, where they should have been, several screens were black. "Storm damage?" Casey asked. The officer shook his head. "No, ma'am. Logs show manual deletion. Timed. Clean." Casey's eyes hardened. She looked back toward Logan. "This isn't weather," she said. "Someone's erasing their footprints." Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, the walls felt thinner than they should have. Lake Superior lay open before them, like a polished blade. Morning light spread thinly across the frozen expanse, turning the snow to silver and the ice beneath to a pale, deceptive blue. From the shoreline, the lake looked calm, beautiful even. Too beautiful to be honest about what it could do. Logan stood with his boots planted wide, breath steadying as the cold seeped up through the soles. The wind here was different than in the forest. It didn't weave or whisper. It came straight at you, unbroken, carrying the weight of the lake with it. Coda stood slightly ahead of him, body squared to the horizon. The German shepherd's coat rippled faintly in the wind, black and tan fur thick against the cold. At 7, he was still powerful. But Logan had begun to notice the small changes. The longer stretch before motion, the way he tested ground more carefully. His ears were forward, eyes narrowed, reading distances no human could measure. Behind them, Deputy Sheriff Casey Weller spoke quietly into her radio, coordinating with a small team spread along the shoreline. She moved with the same practical economy Logan had seen in the hospital. No wasted steps, no unnecessary words. "This is where the plow routes come closest to the lake," she said, gesturing with her chin. "County maintenance uses it as a turnaround when storms hit hard." Logan nodded. "Easy access, legit reasons to be here. And a clean excuse if someone goes missing," Casey added. A black SUV pulled up behind them, tires crunching over packed snow. The woman who stepped out didn't rush. Agent Hannah Brooks adjusted the collar of her winter coat as she approached, her movements precise, measured. She was in her late 30s, average height, with dark hair cut just below her jawline. Professional, unfussy. Her face held the calm neutrality of someone used to stepping into chaos without becoming part of it. There was intelligence in her eyes, but also restraint. She extended a gloved hand to Casey. "Federal liaison. I'm here to keep lines straight." Her gaze shifted to Logan, lingering just long enough to note his posture, the way he stood half-turned toward the lake, the dog at his side. "And you must be Mr. Reyes," she said. Logan met her eyes. "Logan is fine." "I'm not here to take over," Hannah said, tone even. "Just to make sure no one crosses a line that comes back to bite us later." Casey snorted softly. "You mean him?" Hannah's mouth curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "I mean everyone." They moved onto the ice cautiously, spacing themselves out. The surface groaned underfoot, a deep, distant sound that Logan felt more than heard. He'd been on ice before, training exercises, emergency extractions. But this was different. There were no ropes, no markers, no instructors waiting to call it off, only judgment. Coda stepped first, lowering his head, paused, testing the surface in short, deliberate presses. Logan followed, matching the dog's pace. Casey and Hannah stayed back, watching, letting Logan lead without saying so out loud. The tracks were faint, but visible. Tire marks pressed shallow into the snow where the ice had held firm. A vehicle had been here recently, heavy enough to leave an impression, light enough to trust the surface. "Plow or supply truck," Casey murmured. "Either could justify being out here," Hannah said, "especially during a storm." Logan crouched, brushing snow aside with a gloved hand. The ice beneath was clouded, streaked with white lines like fractures frozen in place. "This isn't uniform," he said. "Flow underneath." Coda stopped. He stood still, ears angled slightly back now, not alarmed, but uncertain. His head tilted, then turned slowly to the side, as if reconsidering the ground beneath him. Logan frowned. "What is it?" he asked softly. Coda didn't answer with motion. He looked back at Logan. Not warning, not pulling, away, waiting. Logan felt irritation stir, subtle, sharp. He hated hesitation, hated pauses that let doubt creep in. "Easy, buddy," he said. "We're fine." He took a step forward. The ice cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically. A thin spiderweb line raced outward from beneath his boot, branching, multiplying. Logan froze, heart slamming against his ribs. "Coda!" The dog lunged. His teeth caught the strap of Logan's jacket, yanking hard. Logan stumbled backward as the ice beneath him gave a low, hollow groan. Dark water surged up through the cracks, swallowing snow, spreading fast. Logan hit the ground hard, breath knocked from his lungs. Coda braced, muscles straining, pulling him clear as the ice collapsed inward. Water churned where Logan had stood seconds before. Black, endless. Casey swore sharply behind them. Hannah was already moving, calling for ropes, her voice controlled but urgent. Logan lay on the ice, chest heaving, staring at the hole that could have taken him without sound or witness. Coda stood over him, legs wide, eyes locked on Logan's face. Not panicked, certain. For a brief, disorienting second, Logan wasn't on the lake. He was somewhere else, somewhere loud and dark, radio crackling uselessly in his ear. The same sensation, the same mistake. He had ignored a warning then, too. Logan pushed himself upright slowly, hands trembling despite his control. "This wasn't random," he said hoarsely. Hannah crouched nearby, studying the fractured edge. "No," she agreed. "This was selected." They retreated to safer ground, the wind cutting harder now, as if offended by being challenged. Logan paced near the shoreline, adrenaline ebbing into something heavier. Shame, anger, the sick awareness that his instincts, honed, trusted, had failed him again. Coda sat at his side, close but not touching. "I should have listened," Logan said quietly. The dog's ears flicked, but he didn't move. Hannah joined them, her expression thoughtful. "Whoever did this understands terrain," she said, "and liability. No weapons, no direct action. They let nature carry the blame." "Winter as an accomplice," Casey muttered. Logan looked back at the ice. "They don't need to pull a trigger," he said. "They just need you to take one wrong step." A deputy called out from farther down the shore. "We've got something." They hurried over. In the snow near a stand of scrub pine, a long, uneven mark cut through the surface. Fresh, sharp-edged. A drag trail. "Something heavy," Casey said. "Moved recently." Logan crouched, fingers hovering over the track. The snow hadn't settled yet. Whatever, or whoever, had been here hadn't gone far. Coda stood abruptly, nose lifting, body angling toward the trees. Logan followed his gaze. The forest loomed dark and quiet, branches heavy with snow. No movement, no sound. But the feeling was unmistakable. They were late. Not too late, but close enough to matter. Logan straightened, jaw set. "They're still nearby," he said. Casey nodded, signaling her team. Hannah reached for her phone, already coordinating beyond the county line. Behind them, Lake Superior stretched wide and innocent again, its broken surface already beginning to freeze over, erasing its mistake. The ranger station sat half a mile from the lake road, a low structure crouched beneath snow like it was trying not to be remembered. Logan parked behind a stand of birch and cut the engine. The silence that followed felt deliberate, as if the world were waiting to hear what they would do next. Coda lifted his head from the back seat, ears twitching once before settling forward again. They hadn't spoken much on the drive. After the lake, words felt like they would only get in the way. Logan stepped out into the cold and adjusted the strap of the pack at his side. The encrypted drive inside felt heavier now, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. Truth, once carried, had a way of demanding movement. Coda circled the truck once, nose close to the ground, then stopped and looked back at Logan. Not pulling, inviting. "All right," Logan murmured. "Show me." The path to the old rescue outpost wasn't marked anymore. It hadn't been for years. The station had been decommissioned after a funding cut and a winter storm that took more than it should have. Logan knew the place because he had slept there once, years ago, during a training rotation gone sideways. He remembered the smell of wet wool, the hum of a dying generator, the quiet kindness of a man who'd offered coffee without questions. Coda led them off the road and into the trees. Not fast, certain. His movements were different here. Less investigative, more familiar. He followed a line that curved around fallen logs and snowdrifts, occasionally pausing to scent the air as if checking against memory. The building emerged slowly, its outline softened by years of snow. A single-story structure with boarded windows and a roof that sagged but held. The sign above the door was faded nearly white. Superior County Search and Rescue. Logan felt a tightness in his chest he hadn't expected. They hadn't come here because it was hidden. They'd come because it mattered. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old metal. Logan clicked on his flashlight, the beam catching on peeling paint and abandoned cots stacked against the wall. Coda moved ahead, tail low, nose working with quiet intensity. "Easy," Logan whispered. "Take your time." Coda stopped near the back corner of the room, where a locker leaned crookedly against the wall. He sniffed once, then twice, and sat. Logan crossed the room and knelt beside him. The locker door was dented, rusted along the hinge. Logan pried it open with a grunt. Inside, beneath a folded emergency blanket and a cracked helmet, was a small metal case. He recognized it instantly. Same model he'd used overseas, same reinforced corners, same recessed latch. Logan lifted it out and set it on the floor. "This is it," he said quietly. He didn't open it yet. He sat back on his heels and let the moment settle. Evan Brooks had told them the truth in pieces. Back at the hospital, once his hands stopped shaking and the sedatives wore off, the story came out. Not cleanly, not heroically, but honestly. Evan was an IT contractor who'd been paid to maintain systems for a winter logistics firm. The money had been good. Too good for the work described. He told himself it was nothing illegal, just routing, access optimization, redundancy backups. Then he saw the logs. Vehicle movements that didn't match manifests. Cold storage units opening at odd hours. Data scrubbed just clean enough to pass a glance, but not enough to fool someone who knew where to look. He'd been offered more money to forget it. And for a while, he had. Until he realized forgetting didn't make him safe. It only made him disposable. "I wanted out," Evan had said, voice low, eyes fixed on the hospital ceiling. "But I didn't trust anyone enough to hand it all over." Logan had nodded. He understood that instinct better than he wanted to admit. The metal case clicked open with a familiar sound. Inside was a second drive, smaller than the one Logan carried, identical in shape. Split key encryption. Two halves, useless on their own, dangerous together. Logan exhaled slowly. He hadn't told Evan where this half was. He hadn't told anyone. Coda shifted beside him, then lay down, chin resting on his paws. The tension in his body eased slightly. like a task completed. "Good boy," Logan murmured. The radio on Logan's belt crackled softly. "Reyes." Casey Weller's voice, steady but edged. "We've got a problem." Logan stood, closing the case. "Talk to me." "One of our rangers used to work the North Sector. Name's Tom Calder. He was suspended this morning." Logan's hand tightened on the handle. Tom Calder, late 50s. Lean, weathered face carved by years of wind and sun. A beard gone gray long before retirement. Tom had been the kind of man who spoke little and listened carefully, who knew the land like a living thing. He'd helped Logan navigate whiteout conditions the first winter he came up here, had trusted him without asking for credentials. "What for?" Logan asked. "Allegedly falsifying maintenance logs," Casey said. "Redirecting plow routes, interfering with contracted operations." Logan closed his eyes. Tom wouldn't do that. "He's being made an example," Logan said. "That's my read too," Casey replied. "But the paperwork's clean, too clean." Logan thought of the lake, the plow routes, the access points. "They needed a fall guy," he said. "Someone who knows the terrain. And someone people already see as old school and inconvenient," Casey added. Logan swallowed. Tom had taught him that winter wasn't cruel. It was precise. It only punished mistakes. This wasn't winter. This was design. Coda lifted his head suddenly, ears pricked. He stood and moved toward the doorway, then stopped, just inside the threshold. He didn't look outside. He looked back at Logan. Then, slowly, he lowered his head and whined. Once. Soft, restrained. Logan felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. This wasn't about danger. It was about time. They returned to the truck as the light began to fade, the sky shifting from white to steel. Logan drove back toward town, mind racing ahead of the road. Casey met them at the hospital entrance, coat pulled tight against the cold. "They've already cleared Calder's desk," she said. "Computer seized, badge pulled." "Where is he?" Logan asked. "Home, for now." Logan nodded. "He won't run." "No," Casey agreed. "But he's scared." Inside the hospital, Evan slept under supervision, his breathing steady. Logan stood outside the room and watched the rise and fall of the man's chest. "This doesn't end with one arrest," Casey said quietly. "Whoever's behind this has reach." Logan looked down at the case in his hand. "And patience," he said. Casey hesitated. "You should know something else. We pulled old security footage. Not from town, from a private lodge near the North Trail." She held up her phone. The image was grainy, time-stamped 6 months back. Logan stared at it, heart slowing to a cold, steady beat. It was him, standing outside this same hospital, Coda at his side, snow falling. They were being watched, not chased, studied. Logan lowered the phone slowly. "This started before Evan," he said. "Yes," Casey replied. "It started with you." Outside, snow began to fall again, soft, steady, and indifferent. The cold storage facility sat at the edge of the industrial spur, like a confession no one wanted to read. Concrete walls, no windows. No sign beyond a faded logistics logo that meant nothing unless you knew how to follow money. Snow had been plowed clean from the entrance, a quiet declaration that this place mattered. Quietly. Constantly. Logan watched it from inside the unmarked SUV, engine off. Night pressed down hard, the kind of dark that swallowed sound and made distance lie. Coda sat in the back seat, alert but restrained, breath fogging the glass in slow, steady pulses. His black and tan coat blended into shadow, but his eyes reflected faint light, sharp, patient, alive. "This isn't a raid," Hannah Brooks said from the passenger seat. Her voice was calm, precise, the way it always was when things mattered. Under the dome light, her face looked paler than usual, dark hair tucked into her collar, eyes focused not on the building, but on the chain of implications, stretching beyond it. "No warrants for forced entry," she continued. "Not yet." Logan didn't look at her. "People are getting hurt." "Yes," Hannah said. "And if we move wrong, more people walk free." Behind them, Deputy Casey Weller coordinated quietly with county units, keeping distance, keeping options open. This wasn't about flashing lights. It was about pressure, slow, invisible, suffocating. They weren't hunting a gunman. They were hunting a system. The name surfaced the way rot does. Gradually, unmistakably, Gideon Slate. Former federal security consultant. Private sector now, clean resume, impeccable references. The kind of man who never appeared at a crime scene and never needed to. Logan had seen men like him before. Not soldiers. Architects. "He doesn't pull triggers," Casey had said earlier, her jaw tight. "He designs rooms where someone else does." Hannah nodded. "He advises on risk mitigation, transportation, seasonal infrastructure, emergency logistics." "Winter," Logan had said. "Yes," Hannah replied. "Always winter." They moved closer on foot, crunching softly over packed snow. Coda exited last, posture low, deliberate. He didn't rush ahead this time. He circled wide, nose working, tail still. His behavior shifted the closer they got. Less search, more confirmation. Logan followed, trusting without forcing. Near the loading dock, Coda stopped. He sniffed once, then twice, then turned sharply toward a side entrance. Unmarked, unlit, Logan crouched. "What do you have?" Coda pressed his nose to the seam of the metal door. Cold air leaked out. Not freezer cold, electrical cold. Inside, the facility was louder than expected. A low hum vibrated through the concrete floor. Not compressors, servers, rows of them. Hidden behind insulated panels, tucked deep in a place designed to erase sound and heat signatures. A private data hub buried inside a legitimate cold storage operation. "Jesus," Casey muttered. "This is how he disappears," Hannah said quietly. "No office, no headquarters, just nodes." Coda moved between racks, nose sweeping low. He paused at one section, then looked back at Logan. This wasn't memory. This was now. Logan stepped closer, and the shot cracked the air. Metal screamed as a round ricocheted off a server casing. Coda yelped once, sharp, surprised. Logan's world went red. He moved without thinking, body snapping into motion, weapon up, scanning, shouting commands that echoed off concrete walls. He dropped to one knee beside Coda, hands already searching fur, breath ragged. "Where are you hit?" he demanded. Coda trembled but stayed upright. Blood darkened the fur near his shoulder, thin, fast. A graze. Logan felt something inside him tear loose. He surged forward, chasing the echo of retreating footsteps deeper into the facility, vision narrowing, heart hammering like it had years ago in another place, another failure. "Logan!" Hannah shouted. "Stop!" He didn't. Not until her hand caught his arm, iron grip, unyielding. "This is evidence," she snapped, voice cutting through the haze. "You blow this, Slate walks." Logan wrenched free, chest heaving. "They shot my dog," he said hoarsely. Hannah didn't flinch. "And that's exactly why he wants you to lose control." The truth hit hard. Cold. Logan sagged back, pressing his forehead briefly to Coda's neck. grounding himself in the warmth, the steady breath. "I'm here," he whispered. "I've got you." Coda leaned into him, pain and trust wrapped together. As Casey secured the area and backup flooded in, Logan noticed something chillingly precise. The shot hadn't been meant to kill. It had been meant to provoke, to test him. Someone out there knew exactly how close to push without crossing a line. And that meant Gideon Slate wasn't just watching the operation. He was watching Logan. They pulled back before dawn. The servers were seized. Financial pathways flagged. Subcontractor accounts frozen within hours once Hannah pushed the warrants through the right channels. No arrests yet. But the net tightened. Coda was treated on site by a county vet. An older man with shaking hands and gentle eyes who stitched the wound carefully, murmuring reassurances as if the dog were human. The bullet had skimmed muscle. Painful. Not disabling. Logan didn't leave his side. "You almost blew the case," Casey said later, not unkindly. "I know," Logan replied. Hannah joined them, exhaustion showing now in the set of her shoulders. "Slate thrives on emotional missteps," she said. "He doesn't need to win. He just needs us to make one mistake." Logan nodded slowly. "He won't get another." Hannah studied him. "That's not a promise you make alone." Before Logan could respond, his phone buzzed. Unknown number, one message. Winter is long, no signature, no threat, just certainty. Logan closed his eyes. Coda shifted beside him, tail thumping once. Weak, but present. They weren't done, not even close. The verdict did not come with thunder. No gasps, no raised voices, no dramatic collapse of a man in handcuffs. It came the way winter ends in northern Minnesota, quietly, after everyone has already learned how to survive without expecting relief. Logan sat in the back row of the federal courtroom, shoulders squared, hands resting loosely on his knees. He wore civilian clothes now, simple and unremarkable, but the posture never left him. The judge's voice carried evenly through the room, listing charges, findings, confirmations. Conspiracy, fraud, obstruction, endangerment resulting in loss of life risk. Gideon Slate stood at the defense table. In person, he looked smaller than Logan had imagined. Late 50s, tall but thinning, hair silvered neatly at the temples, face smooth in the careful way of men who had never lifted anything heavier than a pen. His suit was expensive but conservative, tailored to disappear into respectability. He did not look angry. He did not look afraid. He looked offended, like a man unaccustomed to consequence. When the sentence was read, Slate did not turn around. He did not search the gallery. He stared forward, jaw tight, eyes flat, already calculating appeals, delays, ways to make time feel shorter than it was about to be. Logan did not feel satisfaction, only closure, and even that came without warmth. Outside, snow drifted lightly across the courthouse steps. Coda waited beside the bench near the entrance, his body resting but alert, head lifted as Logan approached. The German Shepherd's muzzle had gone noticeably gray in the past year, especially around the eyes. His movements were slower now, measured, deliberate. But when Logan reached down, Coda rose immediately, leaning his weight forward with quiet purpose. "You did good," Logan murmured, resting his hand briefly against the dog's neck. Coda exhaled, tail giving a single slow sweep. They walked away from the courthouse together, no crowd following, no one asking questions. That was how Logan wanted it. Life did not reset after the case ended. It never did. The nightmares still came, not every night, but often enough that Logan stopped pretending they were fading. He learned to sit with them instead of fighting. Learned that memory didn't loosen its grip just because you told it to. Therapy helped, not because it erased anything, but because it taught him how to stand without bracing for impact every second. He learned new words for old feelings, learned that guilt and responsibility were not the same thing. He remained on medical hold longer than expected, and for the first time, he didn't argue. Coda aged more visibly. Cold mornings made his joints stiff. He took longer to rise from his bed, longer to settle. Logan bought a heated pad and a heavier winter coat, pretending it didn't feel like an admission. But when Coda stood, he still stood square. Still placed himself instinctively between Logan and anything unfamiliar. Reflex didn't retire. Bodies did. They moved to a small town an hour inland, far enough from the lake to let the air feel different. Logan took contract work that kept his mind busy without demanding vigilance every moment. He learned the rhythm of ordinary days. Grocery lists, weather reports, long walks timed to Coda's pace. Peace didn't arrive all at once. It accumulated. They returned to Lake Superior in late winter, when the ice was thick, but the light had begun to change. The lake stretched wide and pale, reflecting a sky that no longer felt hostile. Snow covered the surface in clean lines, erasing the scars from months before. Logan stopped at the shoreline. Coda moved forward instinctively, then paused. He looked back at Logan, waiting. Logan smiled faintly. "Not today," he said. He stepped back instead. No hesitation, no argument, just a decision. They stood together at the edge, wind moving around them, the lake quiet and unreadable as ever. Logan felt the old tension rise in his chest, the memory of cracked ice, black water, the cost of a single misstep. Then it settled. He didn't need to test it. He didn't need to prove anything. Coda sat beside him, shoulder brushing Logan's leg, presence solid and warm. Logan rested a hand on the dog's back. "Funny thing about fate," he said quietly, unsure who he was speaking to. "People think it saves you." Coda's ears flicked. "It doesn't," Logan continued. "It just shows up and asks if you're paying attention." The wind carried his words out over the ice. The lake did not answer. But Logan didn't need it to. He turned away first, and Coda followed. Sometimes people think miracles arrive with noise, sirens, light, or a moment so dramatic it can't be ignored. But most miracles come quietly. They arrive as a pause, a warning, a presence that refuses to leave your side when the world grows dangerous. God does not always remove the storm. Sometimes he places something beside you that knows when to stop, when to wait, and when to protect you before you even understand the risk. In everyday life, we face our own frozen lakes, decisions made out of fear, exhaustion, or habit. The miracle is not that we never step onto the ice. The miracle is that we are given a chance to notice the warning before it breaks beneath us. Faith is not about being rescued from every mistake. It is about being offered the moment to choose differently. If this story spoke to you, if it reminded you to slow down, to listen, or to trust the quiet signals placed in your life, please share it with someone who may need that reminder today. Leave a comment below and tell us where you are watching from or what season of life you are walking through. And if you believe in stories where loyalty, courage, and faith still matter, subscribe to K9 Navy SEAL Legends so you don't miss the next chapter. May God bless you and your family. May He guard your steps, calm your heart, and place the right companions beside you when the path becomes uncertain.